Good morning. This is Arlan Suderman, Chief Commodities Economist at StoneX. It's a little after 9 a.m. coming to you from the trading floor. Has BRICS lost its punch, or maybe you could argue it never really had its punch? That's the top headline from this morning's video. But we're going to also look at U.S. biofuel policy and some more obstacles there for it to overcome yet. But let's start with the BRICS discussion. BRICS, as you know, is the organization that includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But in recent years, Xi Jinping has been successful in adding other countries to it as well, including some Arab countries as well as others, trying to broaden this coalition of countries that could stand up against the West. But it hasn't all gone so well. And even though Russia and China have been paired up as allies for the duration of the Ukrainian war, Putin and Xi don't trust each other, but they use each other as allies against the West when favorable to do so. And so we saw a couple of years ago when Moscow hosted the BRICS event, the annual BRICS meeting, that Xi took a proposal to establish an alternative banking system based on the yuan, an alternative to the SWIFT banking system. So they'd be clear of any sanctions from the West that might be applied. And it failed to get much discussion. It failed to get the support needed to pass. And then this past year, um, when Brazil was going to host the meeting, ahead of that meeting, the foreign ministers of the BRICS nations met in Brazil and had before them a proposal to have a strong united statement against the United States and against the West. And again, it failed to pass. So now we go forward and we come and we're in this tariff war that President Trump has created, with China being the primary focus. And we continue to move forward to it with it. A couple of weeks ago, we saw China's lead negotiator in the United States for 3 days, went away with nothing in hand, no agreement in hand. And it's believed that maybe they'll meet again in late October, early November. The current 90-day suspension of the really high tariff rates goes until November 10th. So it's anticipated there'll be some type of an agreement before November 10th, possibly to extend it another 90 days. Number one on that negotiating table is going to be rare earth minerals and magnets. And China's really trying to restrict those and not allow those out of the country for high quality performance. Is a lower quality product that would not be able to be used for our high-tech defense weapons. And China now controls 90% of the world's processed rare earth minerals and magnets. And it's not just the United States that they're restricting them from. And so that's going to again be the top issue in the negotiations. Next, perhaps, would be technology and commodities. So meanwhile, we continue to struggle with lack of soybean sales to China. But I digress. Part of the process has been here that President Trump has put a 50% tariff on India because of its purchases of crude oil from Russia that are helping to fund Russia's war in Ukraine. He's also put a 50% tariff on Brazil. Take note that both of those, India and Brazil, are members of BRICS. So they started coalescing once again with Xi Jinping of China. And Brazil's President Lula called a meeting, a virtual meeting yesterday of the BRICS nations to discuss a united effort to combat President Trump's tariffs. And then when the meeting actually happened, India's Prime Minister Modi no-showed at the meeting. He didn't participate in the meeting. And Brazil's President Lula pulled back on the rhetoric, not wanting to anger the United States or President Trump. And so the only thing that actually came out, instead of a united statement of strategy to combat President Trump's tariffs, was simply a statement that we support unilateral policy based in working with the United Nations to solve our issues. A very weak statement overall, and showing the continual problem that Xi Jinping is having in getting BRICS to stand up against the West. And so it continues to be a rather weak organization. We thought there was some momentum towards strengthening it, and that appears to not be the case, although Xi Jinping will continue to try to do so and may at some point be able to pull together more momentum, but that's not the case yet at this point. Now, I mentioned we also talk about biofuel policy. So far, every decision coming out of the EPA and as well as Congress, et cetera, on biofuel policy has been farmer friendly. And it's believed that's largely because it's President Trump's method or his tool to provide support for the American farmer during this tariff war. And so biofuel policy has been looking very positive for the U.S. ag industry. A couple of things that were still yet undetermined. One is the final RVO, that's the blending requirements of our biomass fuels. We have the EPA proposal before us. It went through the comment period, and there were a lot of suggestions made in that comment period. We're still waiting for the final policy number. The other piece was the SREs, or the small refinery exemptions. We received clarity on the SREs from the EPA. That left about 1.4 billion in SRE RINs in SRE exemptions granted. And you put that together with the current year applications that have not yet been decided on, and it would get to a little better than 2 billion 2 billion RINs to be decided on. And so the question is, would they in part or all or none be reallocated to larger refineries? And so the to the Office of Management Budget that supposedly or reportedly has several alternative plans for reallocation, being partial reallocation or total reallocation, we don't know. It's several different alternatives. Now, weighing in on this is also whether they will change the 50% credit for a RIN credit for imported feedstock. That was the initial proposal, but that got some kickback from big oil during the comment period because they said there's not enough feedstock, and they have a valid argument here because we don't have enough crush capacity yet built in order to provide all the feedstock needed in order to meet the RVO requirements as currently published, especially if there's a partial or complete offset of the SREs. So that fits into the equation as well. So we have these alternatives before the OMB. It's expected that would take about 2 weeks, and then we have a public comment period. It was hoped that maybe we would have some certainty by the end of October, early November, so that biomass diesel production could ramp up once again. Because right now, it's still a lot of production on the sideline, waiting for more certainty on these items. But it's become more complicated now because we have 3 Republican senators from refinery states who, on behalf of big oil, have introduced legislation to prevent the Trump administration from any reallocation of the granted SREs. And so that could drag things on considerably longer, keeping the uncertainty before the biofuel industry and reducing domestic demand, therefore, for liquid biofuels. And so that continues to be kind of the saga of the biofuel industry as we go forward. We'll keep you updated in the weeks ahead on the developments on that. Meanwhile, in the grain and oilseed sector, we have the WASDE report coming out on Friday, September the 12th. The general trade expectations is we'll see about a 2.6 bushel decrease in the corn yield, about a 0.3 of a bushel decrease in the soybean yield. Expect USDA also to ratchet back demand, at least in part, because they ratcheted up demand for corn when they increased supply, so they would undo some of that, most notably in the feed usage estimate for corn, and on soybeans, reducing the soybean export target because we've already lost better than 250 million bushels of demand to China as we've gotten far enough into the new marketing year, and what orders needed to take place to fill demand that they had that's already been replaced by South American supplies and supplies coming out of the reserves. And I anticipate each month that goes by without Chinese buying, we'll see further ratcheting crush reduced by 10 to 20 million bushels as well because of the lack of clarity continuing on our biofuel policy. Be sure to click on like and subscribe if you want to continue to get these updates from the trading floor. And until next time, I hope you have a happy trading week, and we'll be back with you again.